wearing ethnics on just special occasions, we're now looking forward to embracing and supporting Indian artisans, local craftsmanship, and trying to be the voice of local. With this thought in mind, Woodpecker Media has curated this wonderful session with personalities for whom going local is not just a statement, it's actually a way of life. Let me begin with introducing myself. I'm Sonal Agarwal. I'm a fashion and lifestyle blogger, and I'm also the founder of an ethical fashion label called House of Pink Peppercorn, which is all about 100% pure linens and is committed to inclusivity and body positivity. So that's a little bit about me. You can go follow me on Instagram on pinkpeppercorn_Sonal. And now moving on to these lovely panelists that we're going to meet. I, for once, am very, very excited about this entire session. And let me now start introducing the panelists to you. First up, we have Gitanjali, who's the founder of Moha, which is a beautiful jewelry brand. Hi, Gitanjali.
Yeah.
Would you like to introduce yourself a little bit?
No, you can go ahead.
A little bit about your brand?
Pardon me?
A little bit about your brand?
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Gitanjali from Moha. Basically, I have a designer silver jewelry brand called Moha by Gitanjali. Here we take up a theme, we build the collection based on the themes, and we present that collection through our website and our social media. We have done various themes like Harappa, Ashtamangal, Kosh. Our designs are very rooted into Indian aesthetics, Indian origins. I'm heavily inspired by nature, which actually comes into the old Indian heritage designs, and that's how journey has begun like 6 years before. And you can find us on Instagram, Facebook. Please Google Moha by Gitanjali, and you should find. And you can give us feedback about designs as well.
Thank you, Gitanjali. I must tell you that I personally am a huge fan of your designs. Like, I really love them.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.
Next up, we have Sonali, who's the founder of Spoil Me Silly, which is a lifestyle store in Mumbai. Hi, Sonali. Sonali, we can't hear you.
Hi everyone. So glad to be here.
Tell us something, a little bit about yourself, Sonali.
Spoil Me Silly. I think the very name kind of tells you that, we're here to spoil you all. So that's the basic inspiration that's always been behind our small little artisanal store that we have at Thakur Village, to try and understand what the customer wants and simplify it to them and give it to them. And we basically, dealing every handed with a whole lot of love. So you'll find saris, apparel, a lot of home products, even some artisanal food sometimes. So, it's all things pretty under one roof. So that's how I would like to, describe Spoil Me Silly.
Thank you so much, Sonali. That sounds wonderful. And our third panelist for today is Karima. Karima is the founder of Soulworks, and she makes beautiful dream catchers and lovely home decor, which is all handmade. Hi, Karima.
Hi, Sonal. Thank you for a wonderful introduction.
Would you like to say something about your brand?
Yes. Soulworks is a beautiful bohemian store. We started our store in about 2011 with a brand specializing in making some of the finest bohemian dream catchers. And today we have evolved into making Soulworks a full-fledged home decor bohemian brand. So we sell a lot of bohemian home decor knickknacks, from candle stands to cushions to tassel hangings, and a lot of wall decor items. And all of these are made by beautiful women that we employ from different NGOs, and we bring them into Soulworks to create a source of living for all of them. So we are working with a lot of underprivileged women, and they are all working from home, which makes Soulworks a very inclusive space, because anybody and everybody can be a part of Soulworks. So that's the brand, and that's what we are doing. We have our own store in Bandra, and of course we are very, very big on Instagram, and we have a beautiful community of wonderful like-minded people, and that's how the business thrives.
That's wonderful. So, welcoming all the three panelists once again. And before we begin, I must tell you guys that I, for once, am super excited about hearing different views on sustainability and on going local from these three wonderful women. And I'd once again like to thank Woodpecker Media and Moshmi Pal for curating this lovely session. So, I'd like to begin the session by talking about cultural sustainability. Since all the three of you are so 100% committed to cultural sustainability, that's where I wanted to start off. Sonali, I'd like to start with you. I'd like to understand how, with modernization and industrialization, and with so much demand for Western wear, how have you managed to incorporate cultural sustainability into your brand?
Like I said at the beginning, Spoil Me Silly is always about you as a customer. So I have a very simple goal in life. So it's very simplified. It's to bring like we said, I'm the voice, I'm the face of the villages in an urban setting. So I'm trying to bring everything that the artisans and weavers are doing in various parts and simplify it to you. So if a customer says, I do not wear Indian wear anymore, I only wear Western silhouettes, I don't say, oh no, but I only do this. So I say, all right, let's adapt it to what you do, and let's still continue to create. So if I'm creating Western silhouettes or more contemporary silhouettes day in and day out, then I'm automatically sustaining my rural and my cultural heritage, along with making it a little more westernized and making it more wearable. So the idea is to kind of continue to educate people a little bit about our traditional crafts while keeping it easy to follow. So when we talk heavy stuff every day, then it doesn't very rarely becomes daily wear. So my whole idea is to adapt to what the customer wants, and then I think we can actually do everything. So at Spoil Me Silly, you will find a lot of customization happening. I have people sometimes who bring on extremely Western looking suit and they say, how about we make it with ikat? So that's my way of taking it forward. And if I'm able to convert someone who's never worn heritage fabrics even once or twice a week, I think I've done my job. So the idea is to expand the customer base, and then finally I do justice to everyone.
No, absolutely. So what you're saying is so relevant and so true, because in fact, even I personally believe that there are so many things in our ethnic wear which can very easily lend into Western wear and into contemporary wear, like saris, for example. So I keep doing these series on saris, wearing saris in very Western drapes, which really works with people because they get the best of both worlds. So it's all about finding that right balance and the best of both worlds, I guess.
The idea is to just make it more exciting and more approachable, rather than just instead of just psyching everyone up with a whole gamut, just make it more accessible and easier. Yeah. I think that's my work.
Absolutely. Great. So Gitanjali, the next thing I wanted to ask was to you. So your jewelry is so beautiful and it's so thoughtfully done. It's almost like every piece is it speaks of history. Every piece is like a history lesson in itself. So I wanted to understand how you work around with cultural sustainability, what your philosophy is, and what your brand ideology is.
So my philosophy behind cultural sustainability is I give a lot of emphasis on material, what material we are using, because I think it is at base, what material you are using. So from the start of Moha, we have been extremely cautious about using only natural materials, which equally becomes a sustainable material. So not using any plastic, any synthetics has been a very kind of stringent thing for us, that no to such thing. Even like simple plastic wrappings, we are very cautious about it. We don't throw anything, we don't create any waste out of it. We will recycle if it comes to, we reuse it a lot in our packaging, but we don't let it go out. So those are one way of, looking at nature and sustainability. Cultural sustainability, Like I'm right now, what I'm wearing is a jamdani fabric, but I converted it into a simple dress. So I love saris. I love these natural fabrics, but every time wearing sari is not possible for me. So what I try to do is, in my own capacity, I try to convert these materials in my own usable way. So same I apply to jewelry as well. Like, I take inspiration from old heritage designs, but I try and make it in a way they're easily usable in our modern lifestyle. Where you can wear these on simple kurtas also, cotton dresses also, denims also, and shorts also. So that is how I try to retain the cultural sustainability. And I always keep talking about the sustainable and natural materials, where I think people should more and more use these materials, because material is a basic thing. So I think we all as a brand should focus a lot on material, whether it is sustainable, not sustainable, natural, not natural, and keep talking about it. Like I know some women, like a few of my clients, their children got married. I kept telling them, take different views from different state. If you have to buy 15 saris, try and get one weave from one state. So that way you give support to craftsmen also. You actually get cultural heritage, or things what we say, instead of just going for different kind of synthetics and this thing. When probably you can have some, actual variety with you. So these are small simple ways, a lot of emphasis on material basically. So that is how.
That's wonderful to know. Thank you so much. Karima, I like you mentioned that you work with a lot of underprivileged women who actually work from home. So I wanted to understand how exactly do you provide livelihoods, and how do you make an impact, and how does that make you feel?
So, like the two wonderful people here, Sonali and Gitanjali, with Soulworks, we are basically creating an awareness with different cultural symbols that people don't usually realize. They are all around us, but we are not aware. So, we are basically creating a sense of education because there are beautiful cultural symbols like a tree of life, or a flower of life, or your Sri Yantra, or you have your Hamsa. These are beautiful symbols, and evil eye. They all have cultural references, and they all come from different countries and their own stories and histories. And today, in design, these cultural symbols are widely used. So they're used in fashion, in home decor products, and all of this. So with Soulworks, we are finding ways to integrate these cultural art forms into creating home decor products in a very bohemian fashion. And that becomes like a beautiful powerhouse of good, positive energy. The other thing with Soulworks, of course, is that we're tied up with a bunch of NGOs, and we're integrating these women. And what we realize is that when women do anything that's repetitive and that is meditative, it creates a very therapeutic vibe to it. So usually women who are a part of Soulworks in the first 3 to 4 months, they come back saying that, we are seeing a shift in the way emotionally we behave and how we have been in the past. So we see a difference, because making dream catchers is very therapeutic. Weaving all these hand-made products are very, very meditative in nature. When you're making, you calm down, you slow down, and that's the joy of it. And that's why when you use these products, if we say it's called slow fashion, because it's made with lots of love and care. So it eventually brings that into your home, into your life, in your fashion, in your jewelry, because it represents that. So when we have all these beautiful women coming together, we find ways where they are excited about what they do, which means we also integrate women as per what is their skill set. So, for example, we once came across a woman from the NGO who was very good at making puppets. So we said, why not integrate her skill and expertise into crafting products for Soulworks? And that's when we started making cushions. So we created a team under her with her expertise to start an entire line of artifacts. So I think it's a wonderful way where all of us can come together and see where the society has beautiful skills, and you absorb that into your brand. And that's when we are talking about voice for local, right? What is local? Local is people around you. Look at what people have to offer, bring that in and integrate it into your brand. So that's what Soulworks is all about.
I think that's so beautiful. Like what you said about that really is what being the voice for local means. And that's really lovely. This kind of also brings me to I was just making an observation that all the three of you actually have very diverse backgrounds, and what you're doing right now is very, very different from what you started out doing in your careers. So, I personally find that very inspiring, and I really like the audience, to know what your personal journey has been and what inspired you to start a business that is so rooted and so, sort of close to handicraft and to your cultural roots. So, starting with Sonali, you were working in the corporate for a good 10 years. You were with KLM, Northwest Airlines, you were with Taj Mansingh. So, what made you ultimately get into the handicraft industry?
The story is very long. I'll try and make it as short as I can because I've had this very diverse upbringing, and I think that's what leads me to what I'm able to achieve or perform today. Because I have a lot of hard work and discipline comes from my IHM days. I'm a hotel management pass out, so working like a dog is in my blood. I can work day in, day out, 23 hours without sleep, continue. So, that still continues to drive me because I don't need to sleep sometimes when I'm creating. It just moves on. Then came the KLM days, which was extreme hard work with corporates, and delayed flights meant no sleep for 2 hours, sleep for 2 hours, go back, report to work. So there's a lot of hard work which is there with me. But what stayed was my childhood days. Like I said, I got married. I bought only about 8 saris, and going back to what Gitanjali said, it connected with me so much because I remember scouting for days and months, picking up one baluchari, picking up one kantha, trying to build a treasure. And I'm talking about almost 20 years ago, when there were no sari groups and no one knew this. So, to try and figure out, like, I knew I loved this, but I didn't know this was called ikat. Or, when I bought my first baluchari, I did not know what name it had. And about 5,000 rupees that day was, oh my God, I'm paying so much for this sari. But today, every time I remove my saris and I look at them again, there's so much love and passion because there's history behind everything. Like, I have one sari, which is Sindhi Taka, which took 1 year to make. So that woman got pregnant in that. She conceived, she delivered her baby. So every time I even touch that sari, I just feel those emotions. So, while I was doing corporate job, which I think has given me the discipline to carry on a business and make me a successful entrepreneur, but I think the love for everything beautiful is what led me to this. So, that's what it's all been about. Just discovering yourself and bringing what you love. So Spoil Me Silly is nothing but an extension of everything I love. And I always say there's not a single thing in the store that I wouldn't wear myself. So that's I think when you love what you do and you're extending that to your customer, it's very rarely that you can go wrong. And otherwise it's just a journey along the way. You just learn all the time.
So I absolutely agree with you on that. In fact, I really loved what you said about how, it's like the entire life cycle of a person who's actually making it that you can see and feel in the garment. But, sometimes I feel that as a creator, you are aware of that entire journey, or as a very evolved buyer, maybe you are aware of that journey and you take the pains of finding out about that journey and you can feel those emotions. But if you look at our audience as a mass, most people are most people won't even know or won't even care beyond a point about the story behind the fabric. What they're looking for is design. They're looking for cosmetic cosmetic stuff.
I'm going to come in there again. I think that's my responsibility and my duty as being the voice for local, to bring those stories to my people, whether it's through Instagram, whether it's through live chat, a chat platform like this. Even as a thing at Spoil Me Silly. Every time we're selling you a sari, we're trying to tell you the story behind it. We're trying to tell you how hand block printing is done and why this is not screen print and why it's not fine and why it's got its blemishes, and it's what makes it is. I feel, as a community now, even more, it's our duty to bring these stories forward. Like you were very correctly saying, that's my responsibility as a store, I feel, and not making it sound very this thing. I think if only I bring those stories, can I sell my products, and then I can support my artisans and weavers. That's the bottom line that we're all looking at today.
Right.
Expanding the base.
True. Gitanjali, I wanted to ask you. You come from a corporate advertising background as well, and then you got into something which is so creative and so different from what you were doing in your corporate life. So, how did your journey begin? And
So basically, corporate means I worked in a corporate, but I'm only a designer. So in advertising also and corporate also, I worked as designer only. I could not do anything else in my life but design. I mean, since my childhood, I have been a person who draws and do drawings and look at anything aesthetically appealing. And aesthetics has been very, very, very important part of my life always. So it's been always design and aesthetics and art. So this I just changed my medium of expression. Like there I was doing digital design and some other type of designs, and here I came into something which I can hold my product in my hand, and and crafts was always kind of I always love all kind of crafts, Indian crafts. So this was very easy to come. In fact, I really wanted to, so that's why I quit my job and I started working on this. So I
But
wanted
as someone who's following your journey, or as someone who's getting inspired by it, I wanted to understand, like, when you quit a job, with a steady income and with a lot of security,
Right.
how made you jump into this, and how did you go about finding those karigars? Because I think that's one of the most challenging things ever.
So basically support of family, that matters at such times. Like my husband said, we will manage in one salary, yeah, it's okay. We had 2-3 tough years in that time. Like we were actually managing like penny, how we are going to do it and all. We had shifted to Goa. Then first 3 years, I did not take single amount for myself personally from when we started Moha. And searching karigars and all was like tough. I approached one of my jeweler uncle who's in my hometown Malegaon. It's a small town. I think people now know because of COVID. Stories also happened there. So he helped me how to buying silver, how to buy silver, how to melt it, how to find karigar, how to get things done. He was a retailer, so he had knowledge in terms of retailing and how. But then going ahead, I learned on myself how to make. So learning to make jewelry was really difficult. That took like good 3 years to me, where I did a lot of mistakes and I kept correcting mistakes for first 2-3 years, I think. And that's how it happened. But yeah, it took time. It took its own sweet time.
I think it's all about patience and not giving up and keep trying.
I loved making jewelry. Every time making every new jewelry was so much excitement. I'm showing everyone I know that how this is made. This is made. So sometimes my family was actually bored me showing them again some correction. So when you love it, it's okay. I mean, you pull it off.
Right. Nice. And Karima, coming to you, you've been a healer. You've been into alternate healing therapies. So how has your brand right now is very much linked to healing and to mental wellness as well. So in fact, for you, I had a more interesting question. So given today's time, when we've been at home for 3 months, and probably this is going to be more of our life going ahead as well, because we're not going to be able to go out as much. We're not going to be able to, hang out with people as much. We're not going to be able to hang out in groups. So people are going to feel a lot more isolated, which also means a lot more mental illnesses, which means a lot more depression, and means the need for healing a lot more. So, how do you think, people staying at home by adding a few things to their homes can cope?
Okay. So first things first, I do a lot of Reiki. I do a lot of tarot. Yes. We now do a lot of sessions over the phone because people do need help, and phone sessions work perfectly fine. Well, we're not only counseling the people outside, but we're also counseling our own staff, because right now they are the ones who are actually going through the toughest times, right? So there is a way of reaching out to your own people and creating a sense of safe space within your team and telling them that, hey, you're here, you are going to take care of them, you are holding space for them, and you take responsibility with the situation that is panning itself out. I definitely feel that when products are made with a sense of peace, harmony, and love, that they hold that value. And I would say that's true for all three of us as brands, and as four of us as brands. Products that are made with ease and joy and love, they hold that energy. And that's why there's a difference between a product that's a factory made product versus a handmade product. So the same thing is true for Soulworks as well, because like Sonali said about her journey with an artisan, it's the same space that we also take. We also, of course, ensure that we're constantly in touch with the clients. We're constantly asking, checking how things are, panning out to be. I think the biggest joy with Soulworks that comes in is when clients call us back after 3 years saying, my product is still the hero of my house and it still makes me happy. Or when a client says, when I opened the package, I can't describe in words, but I felt happiness, like I felt pure happiness. Now, these are unexplainable, not logical comments, but they hold true, especially when you hear them day in and day out. You start believing that they hold energy because people feel it. As far as other parts of the brand are concerned, we are finding ways to integrate more things in the brand. Of course, keep expanding the brand. We don't want to slow down, so we're not looking at situations to slow us down. We're only looking at situations to kind of keep moving upwards. And I think we all have these tricks up our sleeves, which we have been holding back. So maybe a lot of us are now discovering that we make for great photographers, or we are realizing we are good at social media, we can do this. Because now you don't have an army of people to take care of small things. Now you got to do it yourself for your brand. And now it's the time to put on your multitasking hat and say, I'm going to do all of this because your brand requires you to do so. So if you have been a good photographer, now is a good time to integrate that. So what I'm doing as a entrepreneur is I'm asking myself, okay, what more can I do? Okay, can I learn something new? Can I bring this in? Instead of, instead of feeling helpless that I can't reach out and get this work done, can I just do it myself? So this is about just putting your best foot forward and getting this together. I would be surprised when you will see so many new bloggers and new entrepreneurs coming out of this COVID, because everybody is realizing they have a skill, they have talent, and now you have time to put this together, So it's a wonderful space.
And I think everyone's not truly Atmanirbhar. Like, don't need anybody else. So,
yes.
Nice.
So it kind of works well for us.
And now, since we're on the topic of COVID and how it's affecting our lives, I wanted to actually understand from all the three of you about how are you keeping the momentum up while also supporting your artisans, because I think that's one of the biggest problems that a lot of small businesses today are facing, where because of the 3-month lockdown, a lot of businesses have shut because they weren't able to maintain their artisans, they weren't able to maintain their karigars, they weren't able to maintain momentum. So how are you coping, and what kind of suggestions do you have for other small businesses? Let's begin with Gitanjali.
Hi. Yeah. So basically, when this all started, it felt very difficult. It felt like, oh my God, what is this, and how we are going to manage with it. But slowly, we all kind of gulped the situation. We understood what we can do, and I think now for this time period, survival is most important. Survival of your employees, your artisans, whoever is connected with you. So very first thing, talking to them continuously, talking to them like as frequently as possible on phone, checking with them how they are, what they are doing, if everything is well with family and all, and supporting them in every possible way. Like for next 2 months, we could not pay them full salary, but we still paid them. We paid them 70% or something like what we can. Same which we did for artisans who were stuck in Mumbai for some days, then they went back to their villages in Bengal. So we kept supporting them for whatever they may need. We kept supporting them with some materials also, money also. We kept talking to them. And I think we will have to do it for some more time, like probably for a few more months to do it. That is one most important thing at currently what how we are trying to do now. Just since yesterday we started our shipping, so for the pending orders which we have started shipping, so those are the things that will give support a bit to company, which will definitely go forward to the employees and karigar. So I think by for 2020 mantra is to survive and help everyone else who are connected with you to survive, because business is going to be lower than slower than how it was in February and how it was in last year, last financial year and all. So it's all going to be different, but take it more positively, learn more from it, learn from the slow pace of life, what we are doing, what better we can do, and keep exchanging these notes with people you are connected with, especially people like artisans or employees who probably might not think in that depth every time. So you passing on those thoughts to them and trying to understand what are the basics, what really matters. Yeah.
So I guess communication and a very heart-to-heart communication with all your stakeholders is one of the most important things.
Yes.
Is what I take out from you.
And giving
And
them support in the time when they need it, not moving away from it and just being
Right.
there, trying to do whatever you can that time.
right. So Nali, how have you been able to cope with it? Because also, in addition to your supporting your artisans, obviously you can only support your artisans if you are able to cope with the situation. So how has that worked out for you?
I have a very interesting story to tell. Actually, it's quite surprising. We're all talking about how are our artisans going to cope, what's going to happen with the weavers, and generally the mood is a little downcast, and it should be. I'm not saying we shouldn't be getting worried or whatever, but through it all, what's really impacted me is the way human natures come across. I've had every supplier and every weaver call me, "Ma'am, aap theek ho? Is everything all right? Bombay ka situation itna kharab hai. Aap log bilkul theek ho." So, every time when I see their call thinking, I'm prepared, okay, I'm going to do A, B, C, D. I'm prepared to help you. So for me, every call, when I see every weaver call, the ones who I haven't reached out to because I have a huge wide base. So the minute they call, my thing is, okay, I'm prepared with my answers, only to be surprised by the human element and how little they need. And, in all honesty, how selfish we can be that we're in a position to help them. I think they are the best teachers to us, the way they're surviving with a smile on their face. And a lot of them turn around and tell me, "It's okay, ma'am, चलेगा, हम लोग मिल बांट के कर लेंगे, आपसे जितना होएगा." My own employees, my staff, including my home help, I have to call them. "You haven't come and taken your salary. जब जरूरत होएगा तो ले लूंगी आके." So they're all trying to, in their own way, support. And so I sometimes feel, when Karima talks about vibes, when you create a beautiful space around you, you're surrounded by beautiful people. So I think when you're good and kind, that's the kind of people you get around you. I've never had, it's really been amazing the amount I'm learning from them and supporting them in my own quiet way. I have salaries to pay, I have rents to pay, but I don't have pressures from them. So it's a beautiful journey when I'm really able to enable them and help them. And like I said in the beginning, I think I've always considered that if I do well, this is like the caregiver. If the caregiver takes care of himself or herself, everything else will automatically fall in place. So that's my biggest role, I think, to give a space in this urban setting to our cultural heritage. So, sometimes I feel like initially I remember I said once, you know, saris, if I continue to bring in new saris every month and weaves, I don't know, there is no end to it. There are so many beautiful weaves that I can keep bringing in and never reach the end of it. So I think my duty is to continue to learn, because like I said, I'm learning every day. Silhouettes, weaves, I don't know half of them. I'm not I'm not an expert in any of that, but my constant duty is to learn from them and then pass it on to everyone else in a smaller thing. So, we started with something called Parampara, which is like a small initiative that we started, where we start talking about how things are done. Like last year, I visited a lot of these, I visited my block printers at Bagru. We did a lot of trips around Ikat. And while I've been selling the weaves and, we've been talking about it, but seeing it with your own eyes, suddenly the respect really goes higher. So when I tell someone, Ajrak mein it takes 13 steps, by the time it's, oh, really? Oh, but it fades so much. So I think my duty is to make it, to let people feel the magic behind it, because there's something very magical behind handmade. Again, what Karima said, my women at night, we make potlis when we do fabric jewelry. So I have ladies who tell me, जब तक वो 100 नहीं बनता ना, मेरे को चैन नहीं आता है. And I can look at the potlis and I can tell, acha, ye isne banaya. So you can see each one ka chhap coming into it. So that's the soul you breathe into everything handmade. And I think once we can tell people, show them the magic of handmade, there's no looking back. And that's, I think, that's where we need to go.
That in fact, I think, is the responsibility of us as small brands who work with handicraft, to kind of educate people and show them the magic that we see as well.
Yeah. So inspiration is very easy to come by, because people who do handmade work, who work with their hands, are positive people. That's my belief.
That's beautiful. Okay, one of the last things that before we take the questions, that I wanted to discuss is, so now given that we're opening up again as a country and we are moving into the post lockdown era, as I'd like to call it. There are obviously, we've made a lot of changes to our lifestyles, and everyone is in the mood where they want to hold on to their money, they want to hold on to their purses, they want to spend as much less as possible, because obviously people have now realized that lives are unexpected and there could be anything, happening. So while on the one hand we promote sustainability, we talk about handicraft, we talk about handmade, sustainable products, handicraft, handmade is all expensive compared to the stuff that is machine made and industrialized. How do you think, as a consumer, how does one convince themselves ki nahi, in spite of my current financial status and economic crisis, I will still go in for sustainability or handmade over something which is so cheap? Karima, would you like to begin?
Yeah, sure. So in our case, I think first and foremost, when we are saying as a brand, we are giving you service, and I can absolutely say that all three of us and all four of us would be very happy to offer our services even post purchase. We are available. We are physically, as artists, available to the person who's buying it. Unlike you buying it from a mall or from a China brand, where you have no head or tail of who has made it, right? Here, as an artist, you're taking responsibility for your brand and for your product. So people were calling after 2 years saying, hey, I need some help with this product, something has happened, what can we do to fix it? And they can come back and we will change and, mold the product and freshen it up all over again. So that ensures that you don't have to throw your product ever, because as artists, because we've made every piece ourselves, you want it to remain, forever young. You don't want it to die away, and you will do whatever it takes to ensure that it, comes back to life. The other thing about the way we are dealing with the situation is that we are ensuring that this is like a seed sowing time. So we are brewing a lot of new ideas that we've always had, but probably never had the time to actually make it happen because of the fast pace of life that you usually have. You're running from one flea market to the other, from one order to the other, constantly chasing situations. Now at a time when you're bringing up new ideas together. So post COVID, we're actually looking at making a lot of new changes with the brand, with the way we have been doing things, of putting new designs out there, tapping on to new consumers, being more interactive with the consumers, because now you have the time. You're building your client base. So when you come out of this, you will be on the brighter side of things. So there is, this is a wonderful opportunity and a wonderful time to do your foundation work and make changes that you've always wanted to make but didn't have the time. So that's how we are dealing with the situation.
That's lovely. Gitanjali, what would you say from a consumer's perspective? Having to spend on something, let's suppose, say, $100 on something which is culturally sustainable or which is ethical, versus something similar at 10 rupees, and you have this whole mindset that right now anything can happen and I need to protect my purse. So how do you think people are going to cope with that? And as a brand, what is your perspective?
I think now with what nature is showing us, what is happening around the world, uh, it's. I think it's time now. It's high time where we really need to be conscious about our consumption. And I think a lot of people are conscious. Like they really want to go for organic grocery. They want to go for natural materials. They want to do handcrafted things. And we in India, we come from a country which has population, which has artisanal minds, which has its own craft. Every state has its own, hereditary crafts and artisans having coming from the family backgrounds and all. So we know all this, and women or men who really understand this like this, they will not buy 10 or 12 different things and buy, do a lot of consumption, but they will choose one classy thing which they would really like to own and wear. So that's how it will become more selective. I think people will become more conscious, more selective about their consumption henceforth. I mean, we've been in an area of consumerism. I think that might change little going forward, is what I look at it. 100 rupees thing versus 10 rupee thing, that people will consume it more consciously what they are going to consume.
Hmm. So you believe that this entire COVID episode will change the way consumerism was moving and it will slow people down?
I think it should. I really think it should. We all are already cutting down our expenses. Like we like something, we immediately purchased it. I think
Right.
people are going to think before immediately buying it and all. So it is going to change at least for a few years, I feel.
Hmm. That's a very positive thing. I hope so.
Yeah.
Sonali, what would you like to add to this?
I think I'm a very people person. So I think I'm going to start everything with an anecdote. I have two very interesting stories here. I remember when we used to be a small kiosk at Inorbit, and we had this very old Afghani jewelry. And one of the new staff, and I was just showing her everything. She looks at it and she looked at me and she says, "Ye koi kharidega?" So her entire reaction was, "ये तो गांव का एकदम पुराना सा Afghani, who buys this kind of stuff?" But over time, within a month, that girl had such a sharp eye. She could spot beauty before I could. And so it's all about teaching. So a small girl from Orissa, within 1 or 2 months, with a little bit of training, could catch things beautiful, could catch the little nuances and the little details and everything. Then I think teaching everyone else is just as easy. Similarly, when I had two girls who work with me currently, I gave them two Ajrak dresses to wear, and I could see they weren't really very excited about wearing it. But today they have three. Every time I tell them, okay, choose something from the store, what do you want? They only want Ajrak, because they realize Ajrak washes beautifully. It has a very royal look to it and a very nice touch to it. So I think it's all finally coming down to communication, getting someone hooked, getting them to use it once. So it might look expensive at that one particular point of time versus a screen printed Ajrak, but once you've known the beauty of it, I'm again going back to what Karima said. I feel handmade carries the soul of the creator and the maker. And again, my duty is to get someone to try it once, twice, I'm not saying I can convert them all, but if I can convert 1%, I've done my job right. And
Hmm.
that's again all I'm looking for. Getting more and more people exposed, getting them to try it at not very exorbitant prices. Spoil Me Silly is not very exorbitant. It's mid-range priced. Try them once, maybe as your home clothes. I've had people even tell me, "Oh, I'll wear this at home."
Hmm.
Go for it, because I know once you wear them at home, you are coming back. So that's my
Right.
idea. Give it to you simply. Give them to you as shift dresses. Give them to
Right.
you as shorts. Give them to you as tops. Whatever you want, because
Right.
I know the product is so good. You'll have no options but to come back. And again, like Gitanjali said, um, we are all going back to a little bit of sustainability and a little bit of sensible buying. So I'm hoping, and the right now the emotion is so strong to support local businesses. I'm hoping, like we just take this step forward and make educate people even more. While the
There
sentiment
is
is
a lot
ripe and strong,
of,
let's just strike it. Yes, yes,
there is a lot of positivity around in this subject.
absolutely. So we need
And
to strike it.
And in fact, we have some very interesting questions from our viewers as well. One of the questions, which in fact is something that I was anyways going to ask next, so I think we'll take from Rishi Supriya. With us, how do I choose to incorporate ethical styling with my Western wear? So it's something that we spoke about earlier also, where we were talking more about, how uh, it's a common misconception that when it's ethical or when it's sustainable, it's all traditional, which it need not be. So who would like to take this question? Sure, go ahead, Gitanjali.
Yeah, so like I said before, the choice of material. If material is sustainable, you're automatically carrying, even if you're having a Western sensibility or traditional or whichever. If your material is natural, it's automatically sustainable. So I think probably giving more emphasis to natural materials. There are a lot of linen which you carry so well. Linens, cotton, silks. There are so many color cotton, this cotton, that cotton. So it's just about choosing correct material, I believe, and trying to see that you're not creating too much waste.
Sure, Sonali, go ahead.
Another misconception is that everything has to be 200%. So it's either Indian or it's Western, and there is no midpoint. I think the beauty isn't to try and find the mix and the match. And I think there are so many beautiful videos today on how you can combine a very, very ethnic piece of jewelry with a Marks and Spencer's nice shift dress. I think it works really well. You wear a nice black dress and wear a nice big chunky moha necklace. Why not? It works really well. So don't look at it in isolation. Don't look at it as Indian and Western. Combine them, play around with it.
In fact, like,
The more you,
no,
yeah,
go
go
ahead, go
ahead.
ahead.
So,
Go ahead.
the more fusion we try, the more beauty we'll find. And I think the whole idea is make it easy. You like it with a white shirt, wear it with a white shirt. You like it with a black dress, wear it with a black. Don't think too much. As long as it's looking good together, they don't have to come together at all, I feel. Wear it as per your aesthetics.
In fact, I think that applies to what I'm wearing right now. I'm wearing jeans and a bodysuit on which I'm wearing a silk sari and a chunky neck piece. So, it's all about
Yeah, there
finding,
you go.
innovating and doing interesting stuff. In fact, there's something I'd like to add as an answer to this question is that when it comes to ethical styling, I don't think it's just about sustainable fabrics. Obviously, all those things are very important, but it's also about how much can you reduce in terms of your consumption. So just simply mixing and matching stuff from your existing wardrobe itself is ethical styling, so you don't need to. Tomorrow, if you want to go for a meeting and you think I don't have anything to wear, you go buy something that is unethical. Instead, you dig out your wardrobe, find interesting old clothes, try and recycle and upcycle them. That itself is also ethical styling. So,
And that's sustainability in itself.
absolutely.
Re-wearing your wardrobe in different ways is sustainability itself. So it doesn't have to be, we've just attached so many stereotypes and so many things that we hear sustainability and we get all worked up. It's not that
Right.
difficult. It's very, very easy to be sustainable, actually.
which
Yeah,
which
reduce, reuse, recycle are kind of 3 R's, which absolutely applicable to.
right, which is in fact something and another Hira Mehta is asking. Online shopping has always been something women do. Why would COVID change things? Don't you think cost deter most? I'm not really sure which order this was in, but I think the question is about uh, online shopping and how do you think post COVID things are going to change? Like obviously physical retail is going to reduce the way we all see it, and online shopping is probably going to increase. Do you think how is it going to impact your businesses, and how do you think that trend is going to take off?
I think what's
So
happening is
my take on
everything
this
is
is to
going.
find a way.
Okay, I think we'll go with Karima first, and then we'll come to Sandeep.
So my way of doing this is that I feel that when we are artists and we are all people who actually like touching, feeling the product that we are buying, right? I remember having this discussion with all of us together, saying that we love doing retail shopping because you can actually feel the product and you can see its beauty. So the idea is to make the online shopping experience so interactive that when the person is on the other side of the screen, they don't feel that they don't understand the product fully. The idea is to put the product in its holistic sense out there for the audience to see, so that you stand out from a e-commerce big platform, because you are then still representing yourself as a handmade artisan, even though you're selling a product on an online platform. So probably we are now, I have as a brand with Soulworks, we are making videos now to educate the audience, where we are talking about what the symbol means. So you actually want to feel that you've come to my store and I'm actually explaining to you everything. So I'm actually taking you through the product. I'm not just showing you a picture. I'm going to make it a very interactive process. So you still feel the vibe of a retail shopping therapy feel. So trying to lessen the gap from a usual online platform and bring all the usual retail experiences onto an online platform. That is the way we are going ahead with Soulworks.
That's very interesting. Sonali, you were saying something?
Similarly, I was saying exactly the same thing. Spoil Me Silly is all about selling experiences. So I've always believed we don't sell you a product when you come to the store. We're selling you an experience. We're having conversations, we're having tea together, we're talking about stuff, about what you like, not what I like alone, and especially then trying to, style you according to you, to what you like. There are so many aesthetics that, play around with the whole thing. And I think that's the way forward also, and I think right now it's the time for learning. That's what I'm seeing. It's my time for personal learning more, like we said about the parampara seeding. Whatever we learn, we pass it on to you. So times are going to be very, very different. There will be a post-COVID era and a pre-COVID era. So for me to say, oh, everything is going to be the same, no, it won't. But I think the bright side of this is it's giving me time to pursue and do things which have been sitting pending. Yeah, I do get a little worked up sometimes, but most days I think for creative people it's a little easy because we're able to learn. And whatever we learn, I think we should be passing on to consumers and stuff. I saw another question where they said the idea is to pass on your knowledge. And I think it's time for all of us to build on that, pass on the knowledge, the stories that we share. There was another question, very interesting question for you, Karima, on how do you choose your dream catchers?
I was just coming to that.
Yeah.
So, dream catchers, of course, you choose like any other product that you connect with your heart. There is no logical way to choose a dream catcher. From a understanding point of view, each color, of course, holds meaning, and that is true for any product that you wear or that you have in your space. Space, because it creates a vibration, right? Different colors work as per your chakra system, and of course, they create that energy around you. So, one way of doing that is that, say, for example, you want to heal your relationship. Healing is from your heart. So, we would probably go for colors like greens and blues because they create peace and harmony. Or if you want to create security, stability, confidence, then you will go for reds and yellows because they are sharp colors, they bring out confidence.
clothing. If you want to feel confident, you want to feel energetic, wear like a red or yellow or an orange. It's the same thing that you bring into your house. So the idea is still the same. However, the best way to go ahead with this is to go very intuitive. So a lot of times people come to the store with a design in hand from our Instagram page and say, I'm looking for this piece because I've been eyeing at it for the last 6 months. And they'll come to the store and they will somehow set their eyes on a piece. And they'll say, you know what, even though I came looking for this, now I'm stuck with that and I can't get my eyes off it. So intuitively, your heart knows what is right for you and you will feel drawn to it. And I know I sound very mystical right now, but it's really just that. It's just about your heart's calling and you will feel connected to a piece. So the idea is to just go with your first gut and your first vibe.
That's nice. Gitanjali, we have a question for you. Can you help me with how to team up silver jewelry with Western wear?
Oh, that's very easy. I mean, basically, if you are not wearing something which has a very heavy golden border or heavy golden work, it actually matches well. And I mean, probably if someone need a help, they can message us the pictures of their clothes or something like. But you can always wear it. I mean, even if it is, I mean, I don't know what they exactly mean by Western wear, because for me, a lot of time I am in Western wear and I'm always into silver jewelry. So unless it is something too jazzy, which has a lot of glitter and golden glitter and all, it just works. It simply works. I mean, it's not too difficult. And you can always wear it on your denims, on your shorts, like, wear simple something white or any color and just wear something silver. Now, what you exactly mean by silver jewelry makes a lot of difference. Like some people just, like I'm a very earring necklace person. Like earlier I used to have a huge collection of necklace. So I generally used to go for more plain kind of fabrics where I can wear my necklace onto it. There are some people who love long earrings and all. So, anything they can wear earrings. I mean, a lot of women wear it on gold border sarees and they look absolutely stunning. So, it's about your own personal confidence, how you like to carry yourself, how you feel happy. So it's more of happiness, and if you like itself, there is nothing like you have to be very conscious about, whether it is matching together and all. No. Be happy, be comfortable, that is more important.
In fact, I feel there are no rules to wearing jewelry. Like a lot of people think that, ye iske sath hi pehna chahiye, ye iske sath hi pehna chahiye. I don't think there are any rules to wearing jewelry.
I think you should feel happy. That's it.
Yeah. And
there
another
is no one else to judge you. There is no one else.
absolutely. If you think it looks good, it looks good.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I also feel the more the better. Jewelry is really not about minimalism. The more you wear of it, the nicer.
Yeah, however you like it, basically. I mean, not too much to think about it. If you have like that. Mm-hmm.
There is one more question from Megha saying, I'm a mom influencer and I want to support sustainable businesses. How can I help? Would anyone like to take that question? Or should I answer?
Yeah, please go ahead.
So as a influencer, if you're an influencer, you basically, that means you have influence. So it's not about, whether you're a mom influencer or you're a fashion influencer or you're a travel influencer. Sustainability is something that exists in every walk of life. So even as a mom influencer, there is so much you can talk about. Like, you can start creating content which is around sustainability, which is around wanting to support sustainable businesses. You can talk about, the different things that you do at home as a mom, which are sustainable and which are good for the environment. Because ultimately, it's about leveraging your influence and telling those people who follow you about sustainability and sustainable businesses. So really, there's a lot you can do to help, and we need more and more influencers and bloggers to talk about these subjects and to help sustainable businesses grow. Because like what Sonali has been saying, it's all about education. We are responsible for educating people, and we need to pass on the knowledge that we have to people. Yeah, Gitanjali, go ahead.
Yeah, the education is very important, how you can educate people through your channel. Also, personal choices are very important, and how you're trying to tell the stories about your personal choices, about from how you're composting your waste, or how you're trying to, help your maid, not creating more waste, or how you're telling it to your child, basically, because the younger generation is most important, how we can teach things to, how you are teaching it to your child, and how you are able to tell those stories. That is very important, I feel, especially she is being a mom and influencer. It is more nicer if we are able to pass this to next generation.
You spoke next generation.
Yeah.
I learned so much with my son last year because we traveled through Rajasthan because he was doing this very interesting project on Bagru. And, he's always been wanting to go study design and stuff. And, after that 1 week that we spent with the block printers, and when he saw the amount of hard work that goes in, there was a shift. There was an actual shift where he felt, you've been doing this work for 10 years, but my respect for it is hundredfold today. You appreciate the beauty, and every time so it's just these few meters of fabric that takes 10 days to make. Or you mean the whole process we'll have to repeat again? So awareness even in your children. So I never thought my children could get more empathy than seeing me work with this stuff. But the more you expose them, the more you teach them, the more they continue to learn. So I think
Right.
it's very important, especially the next generation, because we are very exposed to Western influence. So the next generation, we need to actually make fashion more appealing to the next generation. The silhouettes that they like to wear. Maybe you make them more crop tops that you like to wear. Just give them what they want using sustainable materials. So I think we just have to work at it and make it happen.
In fact, that's one of the next questions: how to maintain new trends of fashion as well as maintain sustainability. So, I think what you were talking just now about using sustainable materials, but in contemporary new silhouettes, I think that is what the answer to it is.
Absolutely.
I see another very interesting question. Sonali, can you help me choose fabric and customize a design?
Yes.
It's again going back to the same thing. Design is all about you. So at Spoil Me Silly, especially, we do not have. I don't have designs which are ready. I don't have depths which are ready. So you'll not find. We're experimenting. So very often you'll say, Sonali, let's try a long skirt in this. Why not? Let's do it. We might just get down to a new design. So experiments. I have heaps and heaps of fabric, and we continue to learn. So one day we strike this really nice design which works with everyone, and so it's a joke in my house. My night clothes look the same, my work clothes look the same. Coming back to accessories there, right? So if I'm in my heels and I'm wearing a nice necklace, I'm perfectly dressed for outside. The same dress I'm wearing at home, it looks like 190. So it depends totally on styling and your confidence and what you get your confidence with. I think accessorizing is also a very brilliant key to whatever you do, and creating beautiful spaces which gives you confidence.
And accessorizing can completely change your look, like if you just accessorize the same outfit differently like 10 times, it could look like 10 different outfits altogether. So that
And
again.
also lead by example. So like if you see me at the store, I might be wearing the simplest dress, but it will be sustainable. It will be something from within, not necessarily Spoil Me Silly, but could be anything. So this is not about your own thing, but the idea is how simply you can wear it, and when people see you wearing it, very often they follow it. That's been my journey while we've been doing it. Oh my God, it looks so good on you. It didn't look nice on us. No, but you didn't try it. So you
Right.
try it, you make it work. So my journey again, make people try it, make people experience it, and it kind of works.
Okay, we have another question for Karima. Do you help to choose a particular type of dream catcher for a room?
So a lot of us send us pictures of their home, and we brainstorm on ideas of how to put it together. One of the most classic questions that come in is, what dreamcatcher will look good on a white wall? Now, white wall पे तो बहुत कुछ और सभी कुछ अच्छा लगेगा. So you can mold it the way you want to mold it. I think everything depends on the vibe that you wish to create. So usually, if there's a child's room, then we usually suggest a lot of pastels because they are soft and easy colors. If you're looking at a living room area, then it's nice to bring in bright and bold colors like an orange or a yellow or a red, like the one that I have right now in my frame. If you are looking at, a piece for a bedroom, then it's nice to have blues and greens because you want it to be very light and soothing and calming. If you want to have something for an office space, then it's again nice to bring in bright colors because you want to activate energy, right? So it's all about what kind of mood you're wanting to set, and it completely depends on that. So I have people who will come up with an intention and say, "This is my intention. How can I choose a color?" So then we work with that. So say, for example, you're looking for clarity, then I would suggest usually a shade of white or a shade of blue because that all helps you open up, communicate, bring clarity to your situation. So it's a slightly intuitive process, and on my website we actually have an entire link of what color represents what and how you can actually choose your dream catcher. So if you go on to soulworksmumbai.com, we have an entire article that we've created for you to choose your dream catcher and what are the key aspects that you can keep in mind. And of course, people can reach us directly, and we'll help you out.
Thank you so much, Karima. Gitanjali has gone missing, but I think that's the end of the questions that we have. There's someone who said that I do follow experimenting with my clothing, and if you like that, I just like to do a little plug in here. Go follow my page because there's a video series on different ways of styling your clothes, the same clothes in different ways. So you can probably go visit my Instagram, and which is pinkpeppercorn_Sonal. And thank you guys so much. Thank you all the panelists. Thank you Sonali, Karima, and Gitanjali for being here. I'm sorry, this is my cat who's constantly disturbing me. So I'm doing to keep her away.
Bring her into the frame.
Yeah, she did pop into the frame once, and I had to just shoo her out. But thank you so much for this lovely and very insightful discussion. And thank you once again, Woodpecker Media, for putting this together and for curating this wonderful session. And
let's be the voice for local and continue to talk more, educate more, and support them more.
Absolutely. I think we all have really powerful social media channels which we can use to really leverage that and be the voice for local.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.